Welcome back. This is our second little visit with Pastor Gary. Talk about his grace story.
Yes.
So, just to get back into it, Gary, we talked about your high school academy days.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So after you graduated, you went to mortuary science.
I did, and that really began my journey of wandering or running from the call to ministry. Just very distracted, living in Orange County, going to school, young college kid, just lots of distractions. And just over time, you definitely, wandered from God, less and less time spent with God. Would attend church sporadically,
Where did
here and
you usually
there.
go? Fullerton? Is that where you went? Fullerton Church there?
I did there for a little bit, and we went there again later on after we were married and returned down to Southern California. But that kind of began my wandering years.
I mean, what do you think? You're on your own. You're how old? 18?
Mm-hmm.
You met some people. I know you had a couple offers you did a couple takes or extra in a couple movies.
I did there in L.A.
Yeah.
And so it was
offered a speaking.
It was fun. I was offered a speaking part, but it wouldn't work out because of a chemistry test that I had to take, and so it was probably a good thing.
So after you got done with your mortuary, you went into the apprenticeship? Is that what you did?
Well, I actually did an apprenticeship for the year while I was in school, and then I pursued theology. Went back to then Southern Missionary College. I had an aunt and uncle back there that I lived with and went to school there. And then the following year came out to Pacific Union College and enrolled there. And
so what happened there? That's, I think, that's where things kind of maybe zigged more so there.
Yeah, that was an interesting year because, we met some guys and formed a band, and so we, were having fun with that. And
did you study at PUC, Gary?
Not a whole lot, no, unfortunately.
Your grades are
No, it's like I'm on my way to class and a buddy would say, "Hey, Brady, what are you doing?" I'm headed to class, but what'd you have in mind? And so we'd, hey, I got a gas card. Let's go to San Francisco and look at music gear.
That was way too close to
yeah,
PUC.
it was. Yeah, but anyway, the biggest thing that really challenged me spiritually and in terms of following through on theology was a very tumultuous time. Anyone in the Seventh-day Adventist Church
what year was
knew
this?
that would have been
early
70, 80.
80, yeah.
Desmond Ford was a professor there, and many through that whole theological controversy. There were a lot of pastors that ended up leaving the ministry, and for me, several thousand. And for me, I attended a class, and the opening day of the class, it was a seminar in theology class, and the professor basically began the class by saying, "I don't care what you think, I don't care what you believe, I will tell you what truth is, and you will regurgitate it back to me as I tell you, or you will flunk this class." And that really bothered me.
Did you discuss that with, did you have any other classmates that even?
Oh yeah. And there were some that felt like I did, and it distracted me to the point where I bottom line is, whether I used that as an excuse or not, I bailed out of theology at that point. But it just, as I was watching both sides of the controversy, it was challenging for me. So anyway, long story short, dropped out of theology, ended up going over to Lodi to finish up my apprenticeship after working in construction for a year or so. And then it was just, one thing after another, left the mortuary business to work at a savings and loan. It was State Savings and Loan then, and then that's when we met. And and then we got a promotion, a chance to, after we got married. Now we got to talk about marriage, don't we? I skipped ahead there. That was my bad.
Where did you propose to me, Gary? Where was that?
It was at a park, Lodi Lake.
Lodi
They're
Lake.
in Lodi.
And what did you bring?
Mrs. Fields cookies. Because I knew that you liked Mrs. Fields cookies.
Back then, that was
the rage,
thing.
yeah. So, and I was poor, so, you know.
Yeah,
but
well,
anyway,
yeah.
But yeah, it was.
8 months later, we got married, so it wasn't very long.
It was a whirlwind romance.
And they know that it was the most
yeah,
bliss
it was.
first
it
year,
was
right?
just beautiful. Yes.
Beautifully-
Lollipops and rainbows.
That's
yeah.
right.
Anyway.
But yeah, well, I met you in doing mortuary type work.
Correct, and then made the change.
Wasn't too long after that, maybe a couple of months that you went into state savings alone.
Yep.
Worked in Stockton.
Property management department.
And then about maybe 6 months
or a
is
year.
when you got
it was probably a year or so later.
because I think it was, anyway, you got a promotion there in Southern California.
Down to Whittier, California, as an assistant vice president.
Where were you at spiritually there, you think? What was your priority then?
You know, I cared about God. I still kind of was minimally connected to God, but definitely off track, not where I should have been spiritually.
Yeah, I remember even dating you, Gary. You were a spiritual guy then. God was a big part of your life, but you were doing it through music.
I was doing it through music.
And
That's
all
right.
you guys, I think you were probably one of the most serious with God being in the center of that. And you made a comment to me. You told me that, I'm going to say it. But you told me, you said, you've got to have God in your life. If you're not a very good person.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Well,
You said, if I, kind of in that, not the exact words, but you just said, as long as God's in my life, and if without God, I'm not a very good person, and I just won't be doing the right things. I'm a better person with God in my life.
And that.
Yeah. But I remember you recognizing that and that being so important to you, and saying that to me.
Yeah.
Enough to tell me that.
Yeah, see,
and you were very honest with me in a lot of things, and some of the choices you made when you were, in academy years, and some hard things that you went through that were personal, but you just kind of laid it out there, and I don't know why.
Well,
I guess you figured.
I felt like I needed to be straight with you if we were going to get married, and I just wanted you to be aware of that. And though, again, going forward, deep down I knew that it was important to have God in your life and to be surrendered to Him.
You tried.
I did, but
I think it just.
But it just got away from me too.
We did.
And got very distracted.
So we're in Whittier.
Brittany is born while we're there.
Yeah. What were you doing during that time? You were doing American Savings Loan. It went from state to American.
Right. And then, but we ended up getting out of that. Actually, we'll just cut to the chase here and move forward a little bit. But moved up to Reedley, actually.
And we left Southern Cal and then moved to Reedley.
Yeah.
Didn't have a job at that time.
No, didn't. And long story short, I ended up selling life insurance for Metropolitan Life out of a branch office there in Visalia. And then worked my way up to a branch manager in training, and then ended up becoming the branch manager of the MetLife office down in Camarillo. California. And
that's about the time where Brittany was about 3, and we lived in Reedley and got pregnant with our second child.
Correct.
And about 7 months, found out he was very sick and I wouldn't make the pregnancy, so I had to deliver. And it was a very difficult time because you were out of town.
I was down
out of state.
I was down in Phoenix at a business conference
and found out that it wasn't going to go well. No. And so you flew home the next day, and I had to go through Thanksgiving knowing my child would no longer live. It was difficult days.
Very difficult.
Carrying a child.
It's interesting you mentioned that Thanksgiving because a lot of our stuff, that we've gone through.
And you'll see that.
It's around Thanksgiving time. It's that November time frame. It just is a season that it repeats itself in our life that is challenging.
Yeah.
no doubt.
So we, once we lost the child, and then you got a promotion in Camarillo, and then we ended up moving there that next year, January.
Yep.
And again, spiritually, we were probably just
Well,
status quo.
Yeah, definitely.
Wouldn't you say?
I think, we were taking the kids to Sabbath school and going to church, but I'll speak for me. My heart was in my work, and
Yeah.
I was distracted with that. And
Brady was still the only child then. I think 3 months later, after I had Christopher, then I got pregnant with Kristen. You were involved in music at church.
yeah, I was.
But-
But really, just for the most part, I was sucked into the business life and
Yeah.
world.
Where
and,
did it start to tank? There.
Well, it did start to tank there in that I think as I got further and further away from God, I began to slip into a depression.
Did you know you
I
were?
didn't know. I didn't recognize it at first. However, I think I was running from the call to ministry. My work was okay. But I knew this wasn't for me, and I think over time that the knowing that I was running from what God had willed for me, I don't know what it was about that, but I just knew I wasn't fulfilled. I wasn't fulfilled at all in my work, and then before I knew it, I just sank deeper and deeper and deeper
But you
into
were
depression.
a manager, and then you left. I can't remember. You
I
went
did.
Manager
I
back
did.
into sales. What was that decision?
Yeah, and it really all had to do with the depression, that I couldn't handle the stress of being a branch manager. I just wanted to get back into sales and then do my own thing, so to speak. But my depression got to the point where I didn't want to be at home. I'd walk into my office at work and start to hyperventilate and just couldn't be at work. And so for several weeks, I just drove around on the freeways in Southern California.
Unbeknownst to me, I'm thinking he's at work. And a lot of times his work required evenings, and he'd come home after midnight. I remember one time I was so upset. We didn't have cell phones then, and I didn't know where he was. And I don't know if you remember that, but I sometimes I'd take Kristen to get her to sleep in the car and drive around. And when you got home, we weren't home. And I think I purposefully did not come home. I wanted you to come home to an empty home.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. Yeah,
Because-
it didn't feel good at all.
Yeah, we were just not in a good place.
Our marriage
marriage-wise.
our marriage was not good.
I just got tired of you being gone and not present, and you'd come home and we'd be in bed and gone before we got up. And I guess I just selfishly wanted you to come home and just feel the emptiness that I felt.
And I don't blame you at all for
And
that.
I had no idea where you were.
Yeah.
So I know, Gary, you had that real experience with God as a young boy. Was any time between that young boy experience with God, any time during that in between, you felt that like that before? Was there this big gap?
There was a big gap, especially during this season. I just wasn't living a godly life. I wasn't being a good husband to you. I wasn't being a good father to my kids.
So you were in your life buying this lie that you were worthless.
Well, I
No
was.
good.
I was no good.
Which led you
I wasn't.
to?
Yeah, I wasn't doing. It just wasn't working out, and it wasn't. I knew that it wasn't what it should be or could be, and my tendency throughout my life has always been to fix things. I was raised to be a hard worker,
Right.
so I could just gut through it and fix it. And so rather than being dependent on God and submitting to Him and turning to God, is all right. I had to buck up and deal with it and pull myself up by my bootstraps.
Right.
So I just it just got worse and worse and worse. And unfortunately, it got worse for you and the girls as well. And I just, I caused you a lot of pain. And for that, I'm very sorry.
I know, honey. I know. But, we're on the other side of that.
Yes, we are.
Which led you to the brink.
It did. It did. I was driving around one day, and I was at the end of my rope. I really just was done. And so I found myself in Simi Valley, California, and I pulled into a strip mall where there was a gun shop. And I just thought, I'm going to go in there and get a gun. This is just, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. So, and of course, I don't know anything about guns. And so the guy says, well, what would you like to look at? I said, a 357, Well, as soon as that gun hit my hand, I broke into a cold sweat, began to tremble and shake. And God flashed a picture of Brittany and Kristen, our two daughters, in my mind. And I dropped the gun, went out. I knew that I couldn't do that, and got in the car, slammed the door, and shouted at God, God, I can't do this. You've either got to help me or let me go, one or the other.
Wow.
And anyway, a friend of mine had given me a card to a counselor that he had seen, because he knew I was struggling. And she happened to be in Thousand Oaks, so I drove from Simi Valley to Thousand Oaks.
That same day?
That same day,
Wow.
that same afternoon. Yep. Because I knew I was at the end. But yeah, it was rock bottom. And then God in his grace, though, has a way of pulling us back up.
Yeah, and I'm just clueless. I'm all wrapped up in my life. And
It's really two separate lives.
It really was.
It was
we
two
were
separate
roommates.
lives.
In fact, we even said that.
Yeah, we were
at that point.
roommates, and I did my thing, she did her thing, and it was two different lives, and we shared the kids and loved on them together, which was great. But other than that, we were just living two separate lives.
It was rough.
It was very rough.
I think when we went to a Bill Liversidge, I don't know what brought us back around to go to the seminar. Maybe it was Paul Conniff.
Yep, it was Paul Conniff, a roommate, or not a roommate, but a classmate of mine at Monterey Bay Academy that I still am in touch with.
Was it spiritual gifts?
It was, Bill Liversidge was there to do spiritual gifts at the Camarillo Church.
So we get to this point, I don't know how much time we have, but just real quick. We get to this seminar and we're sitting at tables, and I don't know if you were sitting across from me, I think, and there was a time of sharing something. Do you remember that?
I do, and it was very uncomfortable for me, but I sensed God, you talked about this absence of God working.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, through this weekend, God is working in a hugely powerful way, but because we're so far apart,
I have no clue.
You don't have a clue, and so, yeah, I decided I needed to share.
With everybody. He shared, he was driving around the freeways and showed up at a gun shop, and what he just shared with you. And I did not, that was the first time I heard of that.
Yeah, which that was
it
very,
felt like
that was very uncool of me to do that.
But that tells you where we were at. Well, like you couldn't tell me, because I don't think you would think I'd understand. You really didn't care.
Well, I thought you'd probably just leave.
Yeah, and so he drops this bomb on, and I'm sure everybody's like, whoa. But I'm sitting there trying to act like I'm cool with this, like I know, but I don't know. And I don't know what kind of look I had in my face, but I'm trying to maintain.
Yeah.
Like I'm just, yes, supporting him. And then,
again, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And then we get home, like,
what in the world?
I mean, it blew me away. And I think I needed that as a wake-up call to realize that you were really in a very desperate situation.
I was in a lot of pain.
And, I had no idea the pain. I was just so selfish in myself.
Well, we were both tripping hard.
Yeah.
But the good news of the story is God's grace was sufficient and is sufficient.
Yes.
And so.
Yep, he delivered you from that, but there's so much more. But Gary, do you mind praying? and we'll close.
Absolutely,
All right.
absolutely. Heavenly Father, as I think back through the details of my life, Lord, I've made so many bad choices, and as a result of those choices, I've hurt those closest to me in significant ways. And so, God, I know you have forgiven me, that your grace and your love accepts me, and it's in the past. And I'm thankful for your love, mercy, and grace. And I thank you for the love, mercy, and grace of Rose and my two girls, Brittany and Kristen. Lord, as we go now, I pray a blessing on our church family as they rest tonight, Lord. And we look forward to starting a new day tomorrow together. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Have a great day today.